The first time I saw strangers swimming in my pool, I thought I was hallucinating. The sound of splashing, laughter, and loud pop music echoed through my yard like it was a public resort. But what froze me in place wasn't the noise. It was the sight of my next-door neighbor, Karen, lounging in my deck chair, sunglasses on, a drink in her hand, and acting like she owned the place. That moment, I realized this wasn't going to be an ordinary neighbor dispute. It all started 2 months after I moved into my new house, a peaceful cul-de-sac where everyone waved politely, trimmed their hedges, and pretended to mind their own business. I'd bought the property after years of grueling law school, late nights in court, and saving every penny from my small practice. The house wasn't fancy, but it was mine. It even had a modest pool, which I planned to use for relaxing weekends with my son Ethan after my divorce. For the first few weeks, everything was fine, until Karen appeared. Karen was the self-proclaimed, unofficial head of the neighborhood, a woman who thought her every opinion was law. She introduced herself the first day I moved in, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and carrying a clipboard. "We have some expectations around here," she said, smiling thinly. "Noise levels, lawn care, exterior decor. You understand, right?" I'd met her type before, assertive, territorial, and just a little too friendly when she wanted something. I thanked her and made it clear I liked to keep to myself. But she wasn't satisfied. Within days, she started dropping by unannounced, sometimes to inspect the fence line, sometimes to borrow things like my hose or ladder. One morning, I caught her taking pictures of my backyard, claiming it was for community safety documentation. I should have known then that something was off. The real trouble began one Friday afternoon. I'd been in court all morning and came home ready to unwind. But as I pulled into my driveway, I noticed multiple cars parked all along the street. The sound of loud music was unmistakable, coming from my backyard. I rushed in through the gate, and there it was, a full-blown pool party, balloons, barbecue smoke, and about a dozen people I'd never seen before splashing around. Karen was in the center, laughing loudly and waving a margarita. "Karen!" I yelled over the noise. "What the hell is going on?" She turned, her sunglasses sliding down her nose. "Oh, hi, Ben. You're early. We were just having a little get-together. In my pool." She gave a dismissive wave. "Technically, it's a shared yard. The previous owners told me we could use it whenever. Don't be such a killjoy, shared yard." That was absurd. I'd reviewed the deed myself before buying. There was no shared property clause. Every inch of that backyard was legally mine. I told her to pack up and leave. She laughed in my face. "Good luck proving that, lawyer man," she mocked. "I've lived here 10 years. Everyone knows this part's been ours." That was the moment something inside me snapped. I didn't argue further. I let her finish her little party, but I quietly started gathering evidence. The next morning, I took photos, checked the property line markers, and reviewed the county records. Everything confirmed what I already knew. Karen was trespassing. But I wanted this to end in a way she'd never forget. A week later, I installed new fencing around my property. That same evening, Karen stormed over, furious. "You can't do this," she screamed. "You're cutting off my pool access." "My pool access," I corrected. "And yes, I can. According to the city's property boundary report, this entire area belongs to me." She smirked, clearly bluffing confidence. "You think you're so smart, but I'll call the HOA and have this undone." That's when I smiled for the first time. "There isn't an HOA here, Karen. This neighborhood's independent. You just pretend to be in charge." Her face twisted with rage. "We'll see about that," and she stormed off. A few days later, I came home to find the fence cut open. Karen had done it again. Another pool party in full swing. She wasn't even hiding it anymore. When I confronted her, she shouted, "Well, you can't stop us. I've got photos proving we've used this yard for years. It's called easement rights." That was the last straw. That night, I drafted a cease and desist order under my own law firm's letterhead, citing trespassing, property damage, and harassment. I mailed her a copy, filed another with the city, and included a formal restraining request that restricted her from entering my property. But I didn't stop there. I also set up outdoor security cameras and motion sensors. The next time she tried sneaking in, I'd have undeniable evidence. And sure enough, 2 nights later, at 11:45 p.m., my phone pinged with an alert. Karen cutting through the fence again with a flashlight in one hand and bolt cutters in the other. This time, the police caught her red-handed. The next morning, the whole street was buzzing. Karen was escorted out in handcuffs for trespassing and property damage. Her so-called friends stopped returning her calls. But I wasn't done. I filed a civil lawsuit for damages, legal fees, and emotional distress. Nothing excessive, just enough to make a point. When she realized she was being sued by a property lawyer, she tried to settle quietly. I agreed, but under one condition: she had to sign a written acknowledgement that she had no ownership, easement, or access rights to my property, ever again. Reluctantly, she signed. And just like that, the queen of the cul-de-sac lost her crown. A few weeks later, my backyard was finally quiet again. Ethan and I were swimming one sunny afternoon when he asked, "Dad, why didn't you just fight her when she broke the rules?" I smiled. "Because fighting with fists only leaves bruises. Fighting with facts leaves lessons." He nodded, thoughtful. "So you taught her a lesson?" "Exactly," I said. "Never mess with someone who knows the law, and never claim what isn't yours." That evening, as the sun dipped below the fence I'd rebuilt, I realized something. This wasn't just about winning a neighbor dispute. It was about boundaries, not just physical ones, but personal ones too. People like Karen push until they meet someone who won't bend. And that day, I stopped bending. Message. Standing up for yourself doesn't always mean shouting louder or fighting harder. Sometimes it means staying calm, using your knowledge, and letting truth be your loudest weapon. Because when people cross your boundaries, the strongest thing you can do is remind them exactly where the line is drawn.